Hello, welcome back to Codenbox Automation Lab. This is Shariful. So this is the continuation of JavaScript tutorial. So in this lecture we're going to see what is DOM, the relationship between DOM and HTML, and finally we'll see how to write JavaScript. So what is DOM? So we know that a web page is a document, because a web page is nothing, it's a skeleton of some element, and it's built by HTML or hypertext markup language. So web page is a document which is HTML file. So this document can be either displayed in the browser window or as a HTML source. So you can see on the right side, this is like a HTML source code. If you're familiar with HTML language, you know this this is very simple structure of your HTML code. So like it started with HTML and then closing HTML. Between that there is a head. You can put a head, and there is a title between the head. This is all a title tag, and then it's your body tag, and between the body you can put your some your header, your paragraph, whatever it is, your button, all of your web element. So it's between this your body. So that's your structure of HTML, and it is HTML is a file which represent your web page, right? So now the DOM, or the document object model, is a programming interface for HTML. So DOM is an represent is it is a programming API, or it is a programming interface for HTML document which represent the same web page and can be modified with a scripting language such as Java. It means DOM is another file, another type of file which is based on HTML file. When because when you write HTML code, it is a HTML file, and when you run the HTML file, to load the HTML file to see the view on website or about your website through the browser, that time on the runtime, the HTML file converted to a file, it's called DOM, which is the document object model. And so that's why it's called the document. It is a programming interface for HTML. So it is the outlook, it is the view look of HTML document, which is represent the same web page and can be modified by scripting language such as JavaScript. So JavaScript, as we know from our previous lecture, it's another it's a front-end language that can work on your HTML page, and it can bring a very dynamic behavior to web element. So in your HTML page, there's all different, like your button, your radio button, your checkbox, your input box, all are web element. And on those web element, if you want to make a dynamic behavior, your JavaScript can do this. So based on your DOM file. Okay, let's see more in details. So this is very a rough drawing. So assume that this is your web page. So where you have some web element. A web page is nothing, it's a combination of different web element. It could be like one button, like say assume that this is your button, this is your radio box, radio, and this is your checkbox, some elements over here, and all together this is a website or web page. And those web element built by HTML, right? This is your HTML. This whole page, you can tell together it is an HTML file, and all the elements, all the web elements, individual the part of the elements in this web HTML page, it's called HTML elements, or you can say it's a web elements. Okay, so this web element, it's create all together, you can say it's create a HTML dog. HTML dog is nothing, it's a combination of your your web page element. And now on the other hand, we know this our previous classes, like a JavaScript is a front end, it's a user front end language which is host on HTML, because JavaScript cannot do itself anything. It needs to host through the HTML. So it needs to work through the HTML, but the problem is JavaScript. And what is the use case of JavaScript? JavaScript brings some dynamic behavior, or dynamic nature to those web elements in a website or in a web page. So it means in JavaScript they need to talk those web elements, need to know those web elements, so that it can bring some dynamic behavior those web element. Say example, this is a one button. So if you hover your mouse, it will change the color. So this is like dynamic behavior of this button. So who will change bring this dynamic behavior? JavaScript can do this. So that JavaScript need to make a relationship. All the web elements need to talk to the web element, but unfortunately JavaScript cannot talk to the web element directly. It cannot. So what it can do, it can talk through a DOM file. So DOM file is nothing. DOM file is nothing when your HTML page is loaded, through the browser. The browser, it has the mechanism and to read the to convert your HTML doc file to a DOM file. So which is the document object model file. So the difference only, all the elements, you have all the elements we have seen in HTML structure, like it is every element is based on different tag. So your HTML doc is based on different tag, and it's a DOM file, all those tag it's converted to node. And JavaScript, it has the default object is called document. So document is one of the default object of JavaScript. This document, this default object can read the DOM file, and inside the DOM file it can read the node. So node is nothing, just tag from the HTML code. So when your HTML code convert to DOM, when it's loaded to the web pages, it's converted to DOM file. And DOM file, it just bring all the tag to a node format, and from the JavaScript the document, that's the default object that can read, that can make a connect, can talk with the node inside the DOM file. So indirectly this document of the JavaScript are talking with each and every web element, so that it can change some new behavior. It can bring some dynamic behavior to a specific web element for a web application or your web pages. So that's the relationship. So simply you can say, we can tell the element you have in a website, all the every individual elements of a website, which is part of HTML elements, and all the elements together is called HTML doc or HTML doc file. And when the HTML doc file loaded to the web page, it's converted to DOM file. And JavaScript, it has it's a default object, which is document, can read the DOM file, which is nothing, all the the tag converted from HTML to a DOM file as a node. So it can read the node. It means it can talk or it can make a connection with each and every element in your website, and it can bring some dynamic behavior like changing color. If you click on the button, it will show something, all those things, right? So let's see an example. So this is a very rough diagram and relationship between HTML and JavaScript. So let's open our notepad. So I'm opening so here is our notepad. So here I'm going to write a very simple HTML code, just to see how the structure, when you create we create an HTML file, and then we'll see this how we can host JavaScript file or JavaScript, and how to write, and how both work together, and the relationship between HTML and JavaScript. So our simple HTML code, we know to type it. It started with HTML tag, right? And then you put closings for HTML, right? And then between the HTML, so you can say your body, or a lot of people they use like a title. Let's put head, and then head, and then between the head you can put your title. So your closing head, right? And after that you can put your body, and make sure you close the body too, right? And then between the body all the web element would be up here, right? So let's see that. So what you can say, we'll put a very simple some element. Okay, so let's put a header. Probably you would say h3, I would say, and then let's put over here my first HTML example, HTML or POC. HTML POC is a proof of your concept, right? And then let's put h3. Okay, so that's one of the header, right? And just one element, it's a header element. And then let's put something also, probably one button, I would say. Let's say I would put a button, I would say. So to create a button, so your tag would be button. Say I will give an attribute or properties. It's a like ID, so you have to give the value of the ID. Say I would say my btn button, and then close that, and then maybe you just give your button name, and whatever button name you want to give. Say click me something, right? So probably I would say give a name let's just give a simple name. Okay, click me, okay, or click me to see the date, just simple text, and then close your button tag, right? So that's very simple HTML, and then you close the body, and then your HTML. So let's save it. So save as, so I would say HTML, okay, demo.html, okay, demo.html, and let's save it, or I'm going to save it. Desktop, I have a JavaScript, where is the JavaScript inside that over here. Let's save it here. Okay, so it's over here. So let's close it now, and then now if you just run it, let's open it. Here we go. You can see it's a very simple HTML page, right? Just it has a couple of web element. So one web element. Okay, let's open this one also in a notepad once again, right? Edit a notepad, and beside this, okay, we have this page, right? So here is our header. That's so my first HTML POC, and this is okay. Over here I create a button. I said click me to see the date. So there's no impact happen, right? So to bring something on this button, like some action you want to activate it after when you click on this button, that time JavaScript comes to the picture to bring some dynamic behavior to any web element. Okay, now we need to host our JavaScript so when this file is clean HTML file, right, HTML doc. When we run this HTML file in our browser, to display all this web element, at that time a browser they convert this HTML file to a DOM file. And now if I write the HTML code in JavaScript code in HTML in the same file, that JavaScript can read all the DOM file, like behind the scene, this HTML when it's converted to DOM, it can talk with the DOM file, and the DOM file is nothing, the same representative of your HTML, but instead of like all the web element, it is represented in HTML by the tag, but DOM it's called the node. So because our JavaScript can talk with the node, so indirectly our JavaScript the default the document, that object can talk to the node instead of tag, but indirectly it's talking with the specific web element. So it's the same if we want to do any impact any dynamic behavior in this click, we'll use the JavaScript to to bring some dynamic behavior on this button. Let's see. So now how we're going to inject the JavaScript, how we're going to host the JavaScript on HTML. So there is a two way you can host the JavaScript on your HTML. So it could be you can write the JavaScript code itself inside the same HTML file, or you can create a separate JavaScript file and you can make a link with that JavaScript file with this HTML file. We can make a link, they can talk to each other, so JavaScript can get the knowledge from the separate HTML file can have the knowledge from a separate JavaScript file. Let's see first is how we can write the code embedded inside the HTML code. So here to do this, underneath our closing tag of body, we can create another tag. It's just simply you write script, which is JavaScript, right? So opening and closing tag, script, right? And then between this script you are going to write your code, your scripting code, right? Here so since JavaScript they have the default object, it's called document. So it's a document, that default object can talk with the node from the HTML, which is nothing the the tag of the element. So we're going to use that document object of the JavaScript. So write the document dot, and let's see what we're going to do. We're going to click on this button and it will show our current date. So it means it will show a date, some information. So let's create where it's going to show. For this we're going to create one, let's create one I would say paragraph, right? So let's say p tag, and then I would say give a id is the attribute or properties of that paragraph for showing the date. So I would say current, so this is the id, date, current date, right? And then close it, close the paragraph. Okay, so and then it's very simple. So now in this is an empty paragraph. You can see I just create a paragraph and then it's nothing. I just give a properties of that paragraph like id attribute, and this is the value of the id, so that I can uniquely locate that element, but it's empty because I didn't put anything over here. There's nothing, there is no information inside this paragraph. So inside this paragraph I will display the date when you will click on this button in this element, in button element. So I'm going to again back to our scripting. So I will use the document dot, then I will say it has one method is called get element. So get element by id. It follows camel cascading. So in a doc object, document object, it has a one method is called get element by either id, class name, whatever the properties you are going to use to connect with the actual element. So we're going to use over here the button. We'll talk to the button first. So button have the properties is id, so that's why I'm using id over here. Get element by id, and what's the id? Just copy and paste the id. So whatever the id, copy this and paste it over here between the double quotation, right? Okay, so this is your, and then what do you want to do? What is the event you want to perform on this button? I want to perform click. When it's click, it will display. So you have to, there is a method also, click method. It's called on click. On click, you can see. So on click method will apply where? On this button, okay, this button, right? So, and what do you want to do? When you click on, it will display the date, right? So let's give a function, one function name, what will show the date. Okay, say I would say display, probably display current date, display current date. So this is one of the the function, that's customized function I created. So in this function, I will put actual code that will build, that will create the date. So let's create that function. So to create a function, we'll say function. This is the way you create a function in JavaScript. So you use the function keyword, function, then you give the same name you use over here, display current date, and this is your right function, and then here you are going to put the body of your function. So again, to in JavaScript they have a embedded, or they have a library function. It has in own method, it's called date method. Date method is create current date. Okay, so all you have to call that method. To call that method again, how are you gonna use? So since it's a JavaScript, and we're going to use the same document default object, so we'll say document dot, then now where you are going to display that, we're going to display that date inside this paragraph over here. So we're going to call this id, this element, so it is the id. We're going to use the id. So we'll say over here again, document dot get element by id, and what is the id in this case? The id is, just copy this current date here, paste this here, and then and it has another another method is called inner HTML method. Inner HTML method equals to you call the date method, which is the it comes from JavaScript library API. It's inbuilt method already written in underneath the JavaScript library. So which is create, you can see it's over here, right? So it's a date, date. So your date, call this date function, right? Okay, I believe that should work. Okay, so save it, make sure you save it. So now what we have done, so we have call our button. So we're saying this is the button, so using the id we call this button, and we use the on click action on this button, and after it's on click, what do you want to do? We said equals to display current date. So what is display current date? We create a function by the same name, and over there we call the date method. So date method will display. Where it will display? It will display over here in this element, the paragraph we created. So it will create display up there. So let's save it. Let's see how it is, whether it's work or not. So if you go to there, refresh, and then let's click on there. It's not. Let me probably just need to make sure you save it, or maybe you have to change this. Okay, date, sorry. Okay, date. Okay, save it. Make sure you save it. Okay, save all, and then you open. So close this one again, and then run it. Here we go. You see? So as soon as you click up there, and it shows the date, where this comes from. Let's open again. Okay, edit notepad. So this is our code, and here is our page. Here is our page, right? So it was not, this paragraph was not before, so we bring this and it's affected. So if you just refresh, you will see it's gone. So this is the pure HTML. This is the pure HTML page, right? And then we added JavaScript. We added JavaScript file over here. We added JavaScript file over here inside the HTML code. So this is the way you are going to host your scripting JavaScript on HTML, right? And here we make a connection with the button, and then we apply a one-click method so that it does something. So what is going to do, you have to tell. So we give a function name over here, and through this function I call their JavaScript embedded function from the JavaScript library API, which is a date, which is create, and but you have to tell where this date is going to display. That's why we create another paragraph where we are just using this paragraph property, which is the ID over here, and then in this paragraph we're displaying. And this is the dynamic behavior, right? Without the scripting code, this is pure HTML. And dynamic, when you want to bring any dynamic behavior on your HTML element, HTML page, you have to use a scripting language, which is JavaScript, and that's its bring. So if you click on there, you see it's showing the date of today. Okay, so that's the very simple way you can explain what is DOM, what is HTML, and the relationship between your HTML and also the DOM file, and how you can host your scripting file on HTML. Regardless this, you can create this scripting file separately. Okay, so let's say how we can create our scripting file, JS file, separately other than inside the HTML. So just nothing, you just copy your the JS code, just copy it. Okay, leave the script, this to tag, and then make sure you save it once again so that it doesn't lose it, and then create another file. So let's open another file. Okay, so let's open another file and just paste your code, your JavaScript code here, and then let's save it. So I will say save as, I will give a name, same place. So maybe I will give a name, I would say script demo.js. make sure you put the extension as JS, which is JavaScript, right? And put in the same place. Okay, so here I have this. So let's now open our DOM file, which is the demo HTML file again. Edit with Notepad. Okay, here we have a script. So now how this HTML, because you're scripting JS file, it cannot do anything without HTML, so it needs to host, like we previously have seen, we put it the code directly over here. Now it needs to, this JS file need to talk to the HTML. So how we can make a connection? It's very simple. Between this script tag, you just put say here you put source src, source equals to where is the source of that script file, JS file. So just type the name. So script, you make sure you write the exactly the same name, is script demo dot js. Right, so that's the pretty simple. Just save it, close it, let's run it again, click on there, here you go. You see it's doing the same thing whether you host your JS file inside the HTML or it's outside of the HTML, but it have to be host, it have to be make a link and need to talk with your HTML file to bring this dynamic behavior to any specific element. Okay, so that's all I can say, very simply what is HTML, to see the HTML, how to create the HTML file, how to create the JavaScript file, and how they will talk with each other, to bring the dynamic behavior to any specific web element in your page. So that's the all about the this tutorial. Thanks a lot, stay tuned, there's a lot to learn. Have a good one, bye bye.